Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Charlene LaFerriere. I'm the Partner Services Manager here at TeacherList. My role is to help schools and districts across the country make the most of our TeacherList school supply list solution. Our aim is truly to help you better connect with your families, increasing that family engagement, and obviously taking care of a tedious task in communicating school supply lists to your families, as well as helping them to be able to purchase those items through local and national retailers. So our goal today is really to talk about some tips and tricks that we have for connecting with families using teacher lists. I know from looking at the list of folks, I think that most people are familiar with teacher lists. There are a couple that indicated they are not, so I'm going to do a brief review of teacher lists. But if you have any other questions after this about how to use our system, please feel free to get back in touch with me. I am working solo here today, so please feel free if there are any issues, if you can't hear me, if you have any questions, please just shout out to me in the chat or in the questions. I'll try to keep an eye on them. Don't always do a great job while I'm actually presenting, so I will address anything, any questions that come up at the end. Okay, but let's get going. Again, this is tips and tricks. So most of you are probably familiar with TeacherList. Hopefully all of you are. We strive to make things easy for your schools and families during the back to school season. But before we get too far, I just wanted to take a moment and kind of recap who we are, what we do. So we're TeacherLists, right? The digital school supply list solution. We take those hard copy supply lists that are typically sent home and usually end up in a crumpled heap in the bottom of a backpack and have digitized them into a common electronic format. We connect these lists in this new format to retailers like Amazon, Target, Walmart, Staples, and such, making the annual school supply chore easier for teachers, for schools, and especially for parents and families. Now with just one click, they can pre-populate their cart with the exact items they need without going up and down the aisles looking for a red folder for math, a blue one for science, and so forth. So typically in the past, those hard copy supply lists were typically shared in a Word doc or a PDF, sent home in a backpack. When they are shared on a website, they're typically not responsive. They're hard to read on a phone. Most are not ADA compliant. Sometimes they're printed and stocked at local retail stores, but not always. When learning is virtual, sending home paper lists was virtually impossible. I think we've learned a lot in the past year, right? But definitely digital is the new norm. That's what families are used to. That's how they're used to getting their information from schools and districts now. So when you look at the digital solution that we have, they are obviously, it's digital. They're shared with a click, no more downloads, no more making copies, saving tons of money in paper costs as well as trees by not having to have all of those paper lists being sent home. They're responsive. It's super easy to read them on a phone now with simple clicks. You can access those lists in a very easy format. They're ADA compliant. The supply lists, as long as you're, in addition with your whole website, assuming your website is ADA compliant, your supply lists are as well. You can feel really comfortable with that. And I think that's becoming even more important. We all realize and recognize the importance of making sure that all of the data on our sites is accessible for all of our community. As I've mentioned, we automatically share all of these lists with our national retailers for both in-store as well as online shoppers. We allow that one click to a pre-filled shopping cart experience that families have really appreciated. I think that it's one of those things that families really needed, that contact-free convenience last year when there was so much virus and everyone needed to be safe, but now they are actually, parents are, once you've experienced that, they want to continue that convenience. It's expected now. We also offer a bunch of convenient tools to help share with families as well. So one of the important things about TeacherLists and how we are helping with the digital school supply list is that we all know that getting your parents' attention early on, even before the school year starts, is helpful and helps to ensure a successful school-family connection down the road. Studies have shown that one of the first things that families look for before the start of school is that back-to-school supply list. So having your list available digitally makes this easy and helps parents feel connected for the long term. So while many families were introduced to the safety of online shopping last year during the pandemic, the convenience is here to stay. So as you know, TeacherList provides that back-to-school supply list for our nation's top retailers. When you go to their websites and you find their supply list, you're actually accessing the TeacherList data. In other words, most of your families are most likely familiar with us, even if they don't actually recognize our name. Most of our retail partners will go live in mid to late June in preparation for the kickoff of back-to-school sales, which are generally the first week in July, end of June, somewhere in that time. So until this time, you may not see the links on our site activated yet. We've tried to encourage the retail partners to go live earlier, fingers crossed, we'll see what happens. But the other thing that you should know about that is because most of the back-to-school shopping occurs during the summer, that's when most of the sales are. One thing that I inevitably receive a ton of questions about is the cost of items on the retailer sites right now, because they're so much higher than they're going to be in July. That has nothing to do with us. It's totally market driven. It's just, you know, you're not going to get those 25-cent glue sticks in March that you're going to get in July. That's just the way the market bears. It's kind of like, you know, holiday shopping in November and December. It's just a much different environment. So when you're exploring the site, when you're looking at the retail partners that we have, keep that in the back of your mind. In fact, the retail cost of items, accessing them through our retail partners, through the TeacherList platform, is exactly the same as it would be if you went to Target and found the list individually and then went to Walmart and then went to Staples and so forth. It's just, we provide an opportunity and the convenience to access all of that information at one spot on our TeacherList platform. So, and as a reminder, any updates on the list are automatically shared with our retail partners once they're live. So making sure that is clear as well. Oops. Ooh, jumped way ahead. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, so TeacherList is the school supply list solution. Last year, we had over 1.6 million school and grade level supply lists on our site last year. And that was during a pandemic where we saw a decrease in the number of schools that actually posted lists. That list is, though that number is on track to go way ahead this year. We're noticing that schools are anxious to get back into the business of going back to school, and things are starting off very strong. So that number is ticking up. We're already seeing a noticeable increase. And what we also noticed last year was the number of lists that were both virtual and in-person lists, as well as a hybrid. So there were a bunch of schools, actually I should say a bunch, hundreds of schools that actually had both virtual learning lists, supply lists, as well as in-person supply lists, and then a hybrid of both. So that was one of those kind of things that we saw a lot of in August as parents or as families, school districts decided that, you know, we were hoping to go back in person. It's not going to happen. Let's get virtual lists out to parents. On the other side, for those school districts that didn't, we also saw a lot of parents that didn't know what kind of supplies to provide for their kids. And they didn't have that, and those kids missed out. Not only did they not have the correct supplies in hand, but they also missed that physical, that act of going back to school. So we know that the back to school supply list is critical in helping families get ready for the new school year, but it also helps families transition to a new school year, even if that school year is a virtual learning one. So, you know, that phrase of back to learning as opposed to back to school, that piece really fell by the wayside when you didn't have that back to school supply list. So we know that having that list in hand and going through it, it's an important milestone in transition for families getting ready to go back to school. So bottom line, parents love the convenience of knowing their children are prepared for the first day of school, and TeacherList provides the contact-free convenience families needed last year and now expect moving forward. So let's get going. Let's get right into some of the meat of stuff. So when we were doing this, I sat down with our customer support team as well as some of our product team and talked about some of the things that and questions that we get from a lot of users and admins across the country. And so this is a reflection of some of those things that people asked, some of the items that we thought would be cool for you guys to know and help make your experience more productive. So hopefully many of you are already familiar with the TeacherList Dashboard, but I just wanted to take a minute to introduce you to all the cool things that you can do here. So when you first log into TeacherList, you will immediately be brought to your dashboard. Here you're going to see all the lists in the schools that you're tied to. If you have multiple lists in schools that you work with, you're going to see them all listed here. There's a search field with a variety of options, including school, list name, teacher, etc., that you can search for to help organize and find the information that you're looking for. Also, for each list that you're tied to, you will see all the pertinent information in it. So you're going to see the type of list it is, whether it's a supply list or a wish list, the list name, the grade level, whether or not it's published, unpublished, or scheduled. And more on the scheduler later, but the date it was updated, or the last date it was updated. And most importantly, on the far right-hand side, you're going to see a drop-down menu with action options. This includes any way that you have of managing your lists. You can edit, copy, share, publish, so forth. Anything that you want to do to that list to make a change to it or to publish it, you can do right from the action button. You can also sort your list to find things more quickly simply by clicking on the headers. You can sort by grade level, school year, published, unpublished, and updated. And if you have any questions about what something is, we have all these cool little yellow question marks around the dashboard. Click on any of them for helpful hints. So first and foremost, the most important thing you can do to help your school get the most out of TeacherList is to be an admin. So what is an admin? An admin is a list manager or someone who has the ability to manage lists on our platform, who's approved by the school or district to manage all of the lists for that school or that district, even if they didn't create them. So this is typically the school administrative staff or a team member, the school secretary, a principal, a webmaster, communications manager, an IT director, that type of person. Typically, we see someone at the district level that will have responsibility for their entire district, so for all of their schools. But then we often see, most often we'll see someone at each school level be an admin as well. And that just helps to facilitate things. They're a little bit closer to the list. They may know what's needed, what isn't needed. If someone's out, they can jump in and help control a list. So many schools will have each grade level staff, say, that lead teacher, that lead third grade teacher posts the third grade supply list, but then the school secretary will be an admin for the school and can jump in and help on that. And then say it's the district IT manager or the communications manager will have admin rights for the whole district. If that school secretary is in, they can jump in and help out on that as well. That type of thing. It really depends on how your school community works and what makes the most sense for you. If you have any questions about any of that, we're happy to walk through it as well. So kind of backing up, when you post your list onto our site, you are automatically made a list manager. So that next level of responsibility as an admin needs to be requested and approved. And there's a function, a button that you can click right within your dashboard to do that. We typically encourage someone to be an admin for their school so that every school has someone that's our go-to person. If we have a question about a list that's uploaded by someone that doesn't appear to be a teacher, you're that person that we can go to, or that district person is someone we can go to. It's just a checks and balances for us. So that is super helpful. So how do you know if you're an admin? A lot of times people say, I thought I was an admin, or I think I'm an admin, and I understandably, there's a little bit of confusion about that. So you can tell if you're an admin by clicking on the Edit Account Info in the top right-hand corner of the page and check the user type in your account settings. That will say whether or not you are an admin or a list manager. Then on the My Schools section of the dashboard, an admin will have an icon next to any school that they have administrative rights for. So if you have a school that's listed there, but you don't have that icon next to it, that means that you have not requested or been approved to be an admin for that school yet. So simply send us a request. If there's any approvals that we need, we'll go through and take care of that for you. Another cool feature that I wanted to just let you know about that admins can do is to assign lists to specific list managers. So for instance, right now, we have a lot of district-wide folks that are sending in all of the lists for their schools, but they may not know there's a lot of shifting going around. You may not know exactly who's going to be managing each list. That is no problem. Get the lists up there, let your parents know about them, at least get them in the schedule feature. But then you can go back and assign them to a list manager. So we just need to make sure that someone has an account and is tied to that school. And then when you click on list managers, their name is going to show up as an option that you can assign them to. Okay, so that is a TeacherList admin, uploading your lists. So I think that most people are familiar with how to do this. We've kind of revolutionized how to digitize school supply lists in the world, something we're really, really proud of. And the Power Loader feature accepts most type of documents, including Word, Excel, PDF, etc. There are a few that give us some problems, but you'll notice that if you upload them and for some reason we don't accept it, you can always email it to us so we can take it in case that ever comes up. But it's important to realize that all lists are personally input by our data team. They are humans. Some are staff that are hired just to help with this function. And it typically takes between 24 to 48 hours to process them. So if you're sending lists into us at the height of our season, this may be longer. It may take a little bit longer than 48 hours. That's our goal. Our goal is 48 hours at the absolute most, but there are times when it gets super busy and it's just, we don't want to sacrifice quality to get the quantity there. So please don't wait till the last minute. As soon as your lists are ready to send in, please send them in to us. We can take care of them at any time. It's actually a lot easier for us to do it when it's slower. It's a great training experience for our new folks coming on board. So please, we encourage you to send them as soon as possible. A couple other things that we need to know or that we need to process those lists. There are some bits of data points that we need in order to get them into our system correctly and be able to share them with our partners. One is the list name, however you want to phrase it. Your grade level, what grade is it for? The school year, that's really important. If you have last year's lists for 2020-21 and they're not going to change, just make sure that you write that on the sheet or somehow indicate that these lists are for 21-22, so they won't be kicked back. What we don't want to do, and we take it really seriously, we don't want to post last year's lists for next year. We don't want parents to buy the wrong products. It's an issue for them. It's just going to cause more problems down the road. So we take that very seriously and want to make sure that all of the information on our site is correct. We also need the teacher names if applicable. So even if it's not, Mrs. Smith, it's all first grade teachers or music or whatever the teacher name, grade level name is. We just need to have it there. The other piece is number of classrooms. I always get a lot of questions about why do you need the number of classrooms? In an ideal world, we would love to be able to tell our retail partners, hey, all the schools in the Boston area need, I don't know, 1 million, there are 557 classrooms that are requesting purple folders, make sure you order enough, that type of thing. That's one of the reasons that we use it. We were trying to get a sense of how many supplies are needed out there to better help our retail partners as well as other partners plan better for supplies that are out there. Let's see. So if the information isn't there, sometimes there's a delay because we'll have to reach back out to folks for clarification. So when you're uploading your list, when you're creating an account, make sure that that email address that you use to create the account is correct. We want to make sure that we can contact you if there are any questions. Again, accuracy is really important to us, so we want to make sure that we have it exactly as your parents are expecting and as you are expecting. And finally, if you are posting multiple schools at once, please feel free to email them directly to our concierge group, concierge@teacherlist.com, or certainly you can send it to me and I can pass it along to the team. That sometimes it's just easier. You can upload a whole school at once, but not a whole district. You'd have to do each school individually. If you don't have time to do that, feel free to just email them to us, where I'm happy to help with that. So one thing I mentioned earlier was the dramatic increase last year of virtual and in-school supply lists for families. Districts discovered that they really needed to provide a list of basic supplies for families to keep on hand at home. And we strongly suggest having these available again this year as well, just in case. You can keep them hidden from public view, but you can publish them if or when they're needed at a moment's notice. And I think even aside from COVID and the pandemic, I think sadly, those snow days that we remember from our childhood or from our kids' childhood are probably long gone. I think that there are going to be a lot more days that if it looks like it's going to be bad weather, people are going to switch to virtual learning instead. We've proven it can be done. So I think that it's worth having a list there. Even if you don't publish it right away, it's there if you need it, kind of like an insurance policy. We saw too many people having to try to switch to that at the last minute, and it caused a lot of problems for everyone. So the other thing that was just sad last year was seeing how many kids didn't have basic supplies at home, whereas in the classroom, you could put a group of kids together and to share your supplies, and it wasn't noticeable if a child didn't have the right number of crayons or scissors or whatever. You could just borrow a neighbor's. Unfortunately, those days of sharing supplies are probably long gone. Everyone needs their own individual products, so we need to be cognizant of that as well and make sure that kids have the right supplies available to them. So another item that we talked about earlier that I wanted to touch on again is Evergreen Lists. Each year, the current supply lists on our site are automatically hidden from public view in late winter, typically in February or March. And this is to prevent families from prematurely buying their items on lists from the previous school year for the upcoming school year. So in other words, making sure that they don't buy last year's items for next year. So if your school lists stay the same each year or only have minor changes, we encourage you to mark them as evergreen. They will automatically roll over to the current school year and just make life a lot easier for you. Then you can just go in and make, if they're just subtle changes, you can certainly do that at any time in your dashboard. But then your list will always be there for your families. It's a huge benefit, and those school districts that are using it are really appreciative of the effort. They put the link on their website, the lists are evergreen, set it and forget it. They don't have to worry about it again. So another feature that we have that I want to make sure people understand is there and know about and can help publicize for their Spanish-speaking families is our Spanish translations. The lists that are on our site can easily be switched to Spanish with a simple click of a button. Your staff can upload one set of lists and they can be available and accessible in either English or Spanish. The other huge benefit of this is that most of the retailers only have their sites in English, which creates a barrier for our Spanish-speaking families. Offering this benefit allows your families to add all of the items into their retailer of choice's shopping cart with one click. In other words, they can view the items of all of the items that their children will need on the TeacherList site in Spanish, click the button to go to their retailer of choice, and all of those items will be added into the shopping cart without your families having to try to figure out which item is which. It's a huge benefit. Families are really appreciative of it, and something that I really want to make sure schools and districts are aware of and can take advantage of for their Spanish-speaking families. We also have some really cool, fun banner links that are in Spanish also. You can use them on your websites, you can use them on social. They're kind of fun too. Parent notifications. So we have an easy way for parents to stay in the know of when school supply lists are posted for your schools. So if your lists aren't posted yet, if they are scheduled to be released on a certain day, your families can sign up to be notified. As soon as those lists are posted, they'll get an automatic email saying, hey, your school supply lists are posted on the TeacherList site, or wherever you have the banners, wherever you have links, that is where those lists will be visible. Trust me, your school secretaries will love you for this. And the other way, kind of going along with the banner links that I just talked about, we have a ton of different ways that you can share your supply list like a pro. We have banner links in both English and Spanish. We have them for some cool links and images for social media, for Twitter, for Facebook, for Instagram. However you are communicating with parents, we most likely have a way to make it more fun and interesting to catch their attention, catch their eye. So it just takes a couple steps and you can do it immediately. We have all of the icons right in there. Click the Facebook icon from your school, your district, or the list, and you can immediately share those lists with your families. We also have the capability of emailing or printing those lists as well. So I know that sometimes people ask me, can you print them out? Yes, you can. That's not something that, quite honestly, that we encourage. And that's really because we're all about trying to keep it on a digital basis. We want to save those trees and so forth. But we totally understand that a lot of times parents want to be able to have that piece of paper in hand. So that is something that you can certainly do. I encourage people to print them out, keep them at in your school office in case parents want to have a hard copy in hand, or they can certainly print it out from at home or wherever they need to. So another tip that I would have for you folks, if you haven't already, is to create a central back to school page. So what we found are those schools and districts that are most successful with our platform are those that have shared us on the district page. If you have a back to school page that has all of the information about how parents can get ready to help their kids go back to school, your bus routes, your lunch menus, your registration forms, your health forms, all of that stuff that parents need to know for the beginning of school in order to help their kids be most successful, put the banner in there, put a link in there, put a hyperlink, however it is that you want to display them, make sure that your supply list link is in there as well. Once again, once you set it up, once it's set forever, and it's just a huge benefit for families. And don't forget about those families that are coming in after the first day of school. They still need back to school supply items as well. So you want to make sure that you have someplace available that those parents can access. And finally, as I had mentioned before, make sure that you share your supply list and your teacher list link often with families, however they want to receive information. We know that you can send something out 25 times, but if someone isn't ready to look at it, it doesn't matter. It's like you never sent it out. It's that 21st time that you send it that they act as if they've never seen it before. Unfortunately, that's just how it works with them, I think, with a lot of folks. So we know that people just, every family absorbs information in a different manner. So make sure that you have that list available in a multitude of different manners so that parents can see it. The other thing that I think is really important is helping your family shop the sales, especially in the environment that we're in right now, where there's so much economic uncertainty for so many families. Helping your families use TeacherLists to facilitate back-to-school shopping is truly a value add. Lists can facilitate one-stop shopping for busy families, but you could also use them to just purchase those items that they actually need, as opposed to getting a whole supply kit full of stuff that they may not need. They can also use it to shop the sales, figure out what items are cheapest at what stores, or go in-store shopping with using the list as a back-to-school checklist. There's tons of different ways of doing it. Making sure that those lists are posted and available for your families by early July when those back-to-school sales start. You don't want to send that list out, have them get that just as all the sales are over. That I remember as a parent being super frustrated that I missed all those sales on binders, and now I had to go out and buy 10 or whatever. So just be cognizant of that as well. It's a service and a convenience, but it's also just a nice gesture to say to your parents, hey, we get it. We understand that doing this stuff is not only can be inconvenient, but it can be expensive at times. So make it as convenient for them as possible. And think about your tax-free weekends. Many states are offering tax-free weekends. Figure out when yours are and make sure that that list is accessible, and sharing that information with your families beforehand is certainly a considerate thing to do as well. As I had mentioned before, it's super easy to compare the cost of items through the different retailers right from the TeacherList site, and I encourage folks to do that. Just don't be alarmed, as I think I mentioned before, the cost of items right now are so much higher than they're going to be in July. Just totally ignore that piece. And finally, TeacherList works in conjunction with any supply kit fundraisers that you may have going on in some of your schools. We know that there are a lot of schools out there or parent groups that have supply kit fundraisers, or they have in the past. We don't want to compete with them. We want to work in conjunction with them. So if you have a school that's having a supply kit fundraiser that parents need to get their orders in by, I don't know, May 14th, then you know what, get that list to us. We can put it in our system and we'll schedule it for to be published on May 15th. So we're not competing with the supply kit fundraisers. We're not hurting that, but that list is going to be available for any parent who chooses not to participate or who may move in after that date, or for somehow just totally spaced on getting the order form in. You're covering all your bases and you're helping all of your students get prepared and have the items that they need for the first day of school. So one of the important things that we feel very strongly in is helping all children and families feel connected and prepared for back to school, helping your schools and districts make things easy for them, but then also helping them to connect with their families as well. And that's it. That is it for my prepared slides. Is there anything that anyone has, any questions that I can answer? I'm happy to help with any questions. Okay, I have one question that came in, actually two. So the first one is, are there any, so the question is, do we have to notify the different retailers of our lists? So we work with the national retailers on a nationwide basis. So Staples, Target, and Walmart right now, you do not have to notify them. You don't have to do anything with their list. We take care of that for you. If there are local retailers that you have a relationship with, you would still need to get any lists out to them. But then your parents can use the list as a checklist feature going into your schools. So that works well. The next question is, how do we get going? So First and foremost, if you need to have a TeacherList account, which you can create by uploading your lists. If you're not ready to upload your list, that's fine. Shoot me an email, or I can just create an account and then let me know what schools and districts you're associated with. I can make sure that you are an admin for your lists, for your schools, and that is really that. Make sure that your schools and districts are accurate in our system, which you can do from our Find List page. Again, we've tried really hard to make TeacherList very self-service and self-directed. But I'm here, as well as our support team is here to help you with any questions along the way. So I hope I helped. I hope that I've given you some different things that you hadn't thought of before. If you have any questions at all, feel free to reach out to me at any time, or anyone on our support team. And thank you so much for joining us. Take care.